The most important part to any zoo is the animals in the enclosures they call home. Throughout the series, I'll be designing different enclosures for an array of animals, whilst also keeping guest interaction at the forefront of every build. Join me each week as I tackle a new enclosure and idea and try and bring it to life within Planet Zoo. Today I'm going to be building a koala enclosure, and it's going to take up this nice little spot here at the front of the zoo. Here are the stats for the koala, and as you can see they are obviously found in Australia, and the land requirement isn't huge. This is because they will have a big climbing requirement, which you can see on screen now, and the group sizes I have decided to go with one male and one female. Starting off with the build, I had a design in mind. I knew I wanted a house that people could walk through, so I start off by finding the right pattern I wanted to connect up both paths here. And then what I done was I found a really unique texture, which was like a 3D printed kind of model, which gave off this nice wood effect, which I thought would be really good for some theming pieces later on. So I spend a bit of time on this walkway trying to get the right size. As this is a slightly wider footpath, I knew it would be a bit more awkward to work with, but I wanted this to be perfect because I'm trying to work on different shapes and sort of sizes as well. I don't want everything to look really square, even though this does appear to look square to start with. I promise it doesn't towards the end. I did try multiple things with the roof as well. I wanted a glass roof originally, but it wasn't quite happening, so there's a lot of sort of tweaking on this building. I probably did spend a little bit too much time on it, but in the end it all came together and I was happy with it. I said it wasn't square, and here I'm putting in these circular pieces. So I wanted to step away from that part of the build and focus on the rest of it. Now this is sort of the basic layout I was working with, but I later add a keeper end to the other end of the build, just because I felt like it added some height towards that end, and it wasn't all just big thick walls down this end of the build. I do later add some glass panels here because I'm aware that fence isn't very high. Not that it needs to be, because the koalas wouldn't really go near the fence. They would spend a lot of their times high up in the trees. Here I am focusing my attention back on this part of the build. As you can see, there is some glass panels in there. This does later change because as I was trying to do this roof, I realised it was just very fiddly and I wasn't sure what I wanted, and I knew I wanted the wall to be quite high up as well as the roof so that it didn't obstruct people's views when looking at the koalas. So all of this changed here, and this is kind of the final design I settled on. I knew I wanted this big open space here because it wasn't supposed to feel too enclosed. It was more of a shelter for guests, which I'm trying to include more in each of my builds, because obviously this is set in the UK and the British weather isn't the best. That's the final design there, and I was kind of happy with it. I decided to leave the roof for now and focus on some theming. So obviously these featured in the last episode. I sort of came across them by accident, and I thought they'd be perfect for this build, especially with the Australian theme. I wanted to carry on this theme right out the side of this enclosure to really fill in this space. I'm definitely focusing on theming more in some of these builds, especially some of the ones that come with these sort of packs, like this Australian pack. And like I say, it was a really good use to fill in this unique textured wall, and obviously because it was quite a plain wall, it did help when adding all these different patterns to the build. I had a lot of fun with this theming pack, I think, because there's just so many colours to it and different things like statues, signage, canopies, these lovely koala artwork pieces as well, and just these nice shapes that I used around the enclosure just to make it feel a bit more Australian around the enclosure. I've definitely been quite keen to use this pack as well, so to finally get to use it has been great. This building does slightly change as the build goes on, because I wasn't very keen on all those windows, and because it was meant to be a keeper area, I wanted to prioritise that. Here I am focusing on the footpaths, obviously making sure every enclosure has the best possible view. This also helps massively with the theming pieces as well, because I kind of have a guideline of what to work around, and where I'm sort of colouring in the ground with the sand, I know this is where I want loads of theming pieces to go. One thing I wanted to prioritize here was the keeper entrance to the red panda enclosure. I wanted to make the most of that path, so I made sure you could access the koalas as well. Here I am starting to theme up the outside of the enclosure. This is where I feel like it all comes together, because I start segregating the area off from the rest of the zoo, and it really makes it feel like a really large themed area. These little circular pieces here, I had a lot of fun with these just to give it that abstract look, that Australian feel as well. In terms of the groundwork, I wasn't really sure what to do, so I just added a load of posts just to fill in the space, and I didn't go too heavy with the foliage because obviously it's Australia and I wanted it to feel like the outback. With the koalas mainly being up high, I knew it was important to theme this outside bit, because this is what guests would see first. When they're looking at the koalas in the enclosure, I knew a lot of the time they would be looking up, so there wouldn't really be much to look at on the ground. So I made sure this was the priority when theming. The last bit of theming that I wanted to do was some rock work. I do love a bit of rock work, and it was nice to just add these around the outside of the enclosure. The last thing to do before getting the koala in was getting the null barrier out, and this was okay. It wasn't too fiddly because I just worked around the edge of the enclosure. With the koala in, it was time to fill in the space and get in as much foliage as possible, as well as that climbing apparatus. I did quickly add some plants out the front here, just because I wanted the right ones for the environment, so I used the koala for that. Finally, moving into the enclosure, as you can see, there are some lovely palm trees up. I wasn't really sure what vibe to go for, and I'm a huge fan of palm trees anyway. You will notice they are in a lot of my builds. I was a bit hesitant on this climbing apparatus. It looked very similar to sort of what the monkeys and lemurs would use, but I'm not very confident on building my own climbing apparatus. I'm aware I'm a bit into this series now, but I'm still not 100% there. I have added this bedding around the back here, even though koala would sleep up high. This is just an option for them, and this is also if the keepers need to do any health checks. I'm trying to make more keeper huts a part of the build, because I realise they are a bit hit and miss when I'm building. One item I did discover whilst doing this build was this lovely hedge piece. I can't believe I've never come across this before, as I'll definitely be adding this throughout the zoo. The final thing to do was get the glass panels in, just so that those koalas were kept safely from guests, and of course the TV screens with information. Overall, I'm really happy with this build, and I've been looking forward to it for a long time, so to do it has been great, and I hope you're happy with the result.